Yeah, just tell me what you need to do. Do I get to enable my camera? Do I just share a screen? What do you want me to do? So it's not letting me enable my camera. Did I share? Yeah.
Yeah, no.
What do you see on my screen now?
I see the Discord stuff.
Do you see a presentation on there now? Okay.
I saw it.
You saw my presentation?
Yeah, for a brief second.
Okay. There we go. So you do not see my presentation, correct? Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah. There we go. I'm gonna just stream the presentation itself instead of my screen. All right. I will be talking about your brand, navigating the video game development industry. I'm going to give a brief overview of myself, and talk about the things that I've learned over the past couple years in video games and how I've been growing the team at Funcom and how I've helped other studios. So that's kind of the premise of this video. I'll try to go quickly because this presentation is normally about a 50 to an hour long presentation. I want to try to limit it to about 40 minutes and then save the last couple minutes to answer any questions that anybody have. Yeah. I will be talking about your brand, navigating the video game. I don't know what's going on either. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to disconnect the second monitor. I'm going to unshit. Man, it's crazy. I'm just sharing my presentation and going live with it. All right. I do apologize. I don't know what. Maybe if I change the stream quality. Yeah. You could. Now I'm actually playing the presentation. Can you see? It doesn't make any sense. Okay. Yeah, I dropped it down to 480p. Okay. So you could see my mouse moving around, correct? Is it playing? Okay. I don't know what was going on, but okay, back to it. I've got 16 years of business development and business management experience. I helped build teams over the years. I've been in the video game industry for about 10 years now. I've done HR consulting, recruiting for about 20 different studios. here's a handful of the studios that I've worked for, or I've had contracts with. I helped build the Firaxis team up for XCOM 2. I was working with Activision on the Destiny team, some of the Call of Duty teams, for Raven Software and Vicarious Visions and Sledgehammer. I've done a lot of work at Tripwire down in Atlanta. I helped build their team for Killing Floor 2. So I've been at Funcom now for 3.5 years. I'm currently their general manager. I deal with everything with the studio that has to do with human resources, administration, and operations. So that's a little bit about me. I'm here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. I actually live in the Apex area. Our studio for Funcom is in Morrisville. If you were part of David's chat before, he was here at Funcom with us for a little while. He's at Redstorm, but this is a nice little hub of video game studios here in the Raleigh area. If you're watching this from this area, so there's a lot of cool studios here. But anyway, this is a little bit about me. First, I'm going to talk about your brand. Everybody asks, what is your brand? Who are you? That's pretty much what your brand is. It's who you are. Whenever I look at somebody and somebody's applying for a job, I'm trying to figure out who they are, what they're about, background, their experience, their portfolio. Just that is their brand, and we are hiring you person for what you know, and you just need to remember that. We look at somebody's resume, we look at their specific experience. Their portfolio should always be focused on them, what they've done, what they've delivered. This is important whenever I talk to people about defining their brand. Avoid using the words we or team. I can't tell you how many interviews I've been part of where people have spoken like the team did this and we were responsible for this. It's important to identify what you've specifically done, because obviously we are hiring you as a person again. Just try to sell your personality. Stay positive. Sell yourself. You're your best advocate. Try to sell yourself. Positivity goes a long way. A lot of times I hear people that get kind of beat up by applying to a lot of different jobs, and they're very down and negative. Oh, I've applied to 20 places. I'm never going to get a job. I mean, trying to stay positive is important. There's a lot of different companies out there. There's a lot of different people that are looking for various styles and looks and feels and genres, and people that know very specific languages. There's a place out there for everybody. I hear somebody's mic. I don't know who that was. I'm sorry, but I hear somebody. But sell your personality. Sell who you are. If you know C#, sell C# because there's plenty of studios that use Unity. If you know C++, sell that. If you like doing very stylized art, sell that. That's who you are. It may not be right for that studio. People get really beat up on their portfolio if it's not right for a studio and they get declined. But what they don't understand is a specific studio is looking for a very specific person and a very specific style or skill set, and it may just not fit. And it has nothing to do with you. It just is not right at that moment in time. Just remember that. This is important. People typically will hire a personality over a skill set. I can't tell you how many times I've hired somebody that has just been really down to earth and easygoing and easy to talk to, as opposed to being the best artist or the best programmer, because I know that they're going to fit in the team. I know that they're going to learn. So sometimes personality goes a longer way than a certain set of skills. So this is a joke that we have, but desperation is a stinky cologne. We've said this in our office, but when somebody's very, very desperate for something, it comes across as very negative. So do not be desperate. Again, there is a job out there for everybody, and hopefully you'll learn some things in this presentation. But your resume. I always tell people to F up their resume. It's kind of a joke, but it's not. This is an eye tracking software that looks over documents and shows you where people look at on resumes and documents. And just realize that you need to put all your important information in the red areas, because this is where recruiters, HR people will look over your resume. Starting off at the top, your objective. Having a generic objective is death. Putting something like, I want to be a 3D artist at your company. Recruiters only look at resumes for probably 6 to 7 seconds is probably the glance that they'll give it. And if something turns them off like a generic objective, they'll just move on to the next. Make your objective something specific to the job that you're applying for. Have very bulleted keywords. I can't tell you how many times I've looked over a resume and I'm looking for a certain keyword. If I'm hiring a programmer, I want to see Unreal. I want to see C++, especially for Funcom. If I'm hiring an artist, I want to see, do you know Blender? Do you know Max? Do you know Maya? Do you know ZBrush? I mean, these are the things that I look for. I want to see them as very bulleted keywords. Skills and software, make sure that you list everything. Your work experience. It's common practice to list it from the most recent to then the oldest. If you don't have a lot of industry experience, that's okay. Put down anytime you've done any type of game testing, any internships, project work. That's all important and part of your resume. List your education, your institution, the year you graduated, the major. Those are all kind of mandatory things. Again, I said this, but an average recruiter says that they look over a resume for 6 seconds before deciding whether they're moving on to the next stage or getting declined. I will say that after the 6 seconds, if I notice things that I like, I will then look at somebody's portfolio. I will go to an art station or I will go to a website, but 6 seconds is the average time. Do's and don'ts of your resume. And this comes from me looking at thousands and thousands of resumes for lots and lots of different companies. Your experience, list your specific experience or skills that relate to your job. I personally don't like it when people will list that they've worked at other companies, that they were a barista at Starbucks, that they stock shelves at Walmart. Like that has no relevance to the position that you're applying for. I understand the other side of it that shows that you've been gainfully employed, but I want to know what you've done that contributes to that specific job. So listing that on your resume is important. Just listing miscellaneous other jobs that you've had over the past 10 years or 5 years, it doesn't do anything for me to decide whether you're good at the job that I'm going to be hiring you for. Education. Include the education or certifications or classes that are relevant to the job that you're applying for. If you don't have a degree that is applicable to the job that you're applying for, like I hold 2 degrees. I have a degree in psychology and a degree in information technology. They may not be applicable to the jobs that I'm applying for, but I'm going to list them. But if you've taken certain certifications or classes, list them. You do not need to include your GPA. Most people don't necessarily care as long as you've gotten the degree, whether you've gotten a 4.0 or a 3.7. We are just looking that you've completed that education, that you've gotten that certification. Personal information. Always make sure that you have your name, your phone number, your email address, even if it's just the city and states, just so that we know what we're talking about. Whenever I look at a resume, I'm really looking for ways to contact you back. There's been times when I have not been able to find an email address on a resume, and that's horrible because I need to get back to you. Your address, you don't need to list the whole address, but sometimes I just want to know if you're in state, if you're out of state, if I'm going to have to relocate you, which is fine for let's say Funcom. We do relocate people from all over the country or even from other countries. Don't include a headshot, family details, marital status, religion. It's very common in CVs. In Europe, I do a lot of recruitment and HR for our other studios. We have a studio in Norway, a studio in Portugal. I'm used to seeing CVs that have this. It's not necessary when applying for jobs, though. More do's and don'ts. Vocabulary. Use simple and direct statements and always make sure you spell check. I can't tell you how many times people haven't spell checked their resume and it sticks out like a sore thumb. Don't use cliches or idioms like you're a team player, you're hardworking, you're a good communicator. Those things I know that they're the soft skills that people look for, but those are just, everybody puts them on their resume. We understand that you need to be a good communicator to get the job. So. Applicant tracking systems. There are so many applicant tracking systems out there. You'll see things like Taleo and Bullhorn, and we use Team Taylor at Funcom. There's lots of different applicant tracking systems out there. That's the software that you are putting your resume and your information into within a company to then have you put through the process of the hiring process. So you need to make sure that your content and your structure is optimized for applicant tracking systems. A lot of times I'll see artists especially will flatten their resume because they've put in graphics onto it, or they've turned it into a flattened PDF file. Really important that you do not do this, because a lot of applicant tracking systems will pull the text, the content from that, and autofill fields. So make sure that you don't flatten everything. Make sure that you don't leave out keywords. Make sure that it's either a Word document or an unflattened PDF file. The length. This is always a debate. You know, if you have a ton of experience, do you go beyond 2 pages? Do you not? I will say 2 pages is more than enough. Don't go over 2 pages. Once you start talking about 3, 4 pages, it gets to be too much for somebody to read over. One does not simply hire based on resume alone. This is very true, and I mentioned this earlier, is that we look at personalities, we look at a lot of different things. So we look at your portfolio. That is part of who you are, and I'm going to share with you. This is one of our concept artists at Funcom, Brian Wells. He was over at High Res for years, but he's our senior concept artist, and he's working on our new Dune project, which is a persistent online survival game. But he's on our team. So if you go to somebody like his ArtStation or his portfolio, you know, it's laid out well. There's different folders that show his work, the projects that he's worked on. Just make sure your portfolios are up to date. They have a current look and feel, and they're using, you know, current software. Use industry pages like ArtStation is probably the most prevalent. Polycount, Carbon Made. If you have your own, you know, WordPress site, that's fine. Just make sure it's up to date and current. Believe it or not, we do look at social media, especially things like LinkedIn, when we're trying to hire people. So make sure that your Facebook page, your LinkedIn, your Twitter are all updated with examples. Make sure that you have your resume on your site. It's very easy to put it on something like ArtStation, your contact information. Make sure it's there so that as a HR recruiter, we can pull that off and have access to it. Always make sure your contact information is on everything. If you have the ability to use videos, if you have a YouTube page or any type of video platform, just share those links. A lot of times animators will put their animations, their character animations, their run loops, all that in videos. It's nice that we have that. We have access to it. Next section is all about your personality and a cultural fit. Defining yourself, standing out from other people is extremely important. I know that's kind of like an understood in the industry, but making sure that you stand out. I can't tell you how many hundreds of people we get for jobs. I'll open up a game designer job or an artist job, and we'll get hundreds of applicants. And we're Funcom. I mean, we are we're a 200-person video game studio with 3 locations. We're not Epic Games. We're not Red Storm. I mean, we're not an Ubisoft company. We're smaller, and we get hundreds. I can't even imagine what the team over at Epic gets when they post a job. They have an army of recruiters and HR people, you know, sifting through those things. So your job is to define yourself, and that's through your brand, your portfolio, trying to find ways to make yourself stand out. So make sure that you define yourself on paper. And I'll later on the presentation, I'll give some hints on how to kind of connect with people and kind of get your foot in the door. But showing your personality and keeping your skills in the forefront is important. I love it when people will submit a resume and write a little blurb and just make a joke or write something funny or something that's eye-catching. I mean, that's important to me. Again, I want to reiterate that using the terms "we" is horrible to do anytime you're writing something up or even in an interview. Focused on what you bring to the table and what you can do for the company. Anytime you are trying to phrase something, you know, focus it on you. I am able to do this. I worked on this. I know this software. Again, I'm hiring you. Make sure that you fit with the company and the company fits with you. This is really important. We have something at Funcom called the shit test. I know it sounds funny, but you swear in front of them. I know it's not very politically correct. We're a video game company. We have a game that has nudity in it. That's the reality of our company. We need to make sure that people fit with our company culture. And, with something like that, it's how you react to when somebody swears in front of you. So make sure that you understand the culture that you're going into when you apply for a job. Kind of do your research, look at Glassdoor, look at what the industry says about a company. You could see whether they're a serious game company or whether they do educational games. You kind of know the environment when you're going into an educational game company. I used to work for a company called Filament in Madison, Wisconsin. They do educational games. Uh, we are looking for a very specific type of person there, as opposed to somebody like Tripwire, which, or a Funcom, which is a very fun, real, people swear in the office, and you need to make sure that you fit in with that. And if you don't, it just makes for a bad work environment for everybody. So we do stay compliant with HR things. We don't offend people, but I mean, if people swear in the office, I mean, it happens. We're all adults, and just it's how you react to it. I'm going to give you a real world example of somebody that stood out. So about I would say 7 or 8 years ago, I was on the hiring team for XCOM 2. I was contracted by Firaxis, the Take-Two studio. I was building the team for XCOM 2, Unreal Studio, in the Baltimore, Maryland area, and I was tasked with finding multiple people that knew the Unreal Engine, that knew real-time strategy games. So I was hiring lots and lots of different types of people. I was tasked with hiring multiple level designers, people that knew the Unreal Engine, people that had experience, with level design in particular. I had a candidate, I'll call him Bob. He was working with a AA studio down in Florida, making some kind of dungeon game. I know what it is, but you can make the connection there. But he didn't have the exact portfolio that Firaxis was looking for. I mean, he came from a smaller AA studio. It was a different style. But this candidate wanted to work for Firaxis. This was his goal. His dream was to be part of the Firaxis studio. What did he do? This candidate, in addition to submitting his resume, talking to me getting him in process, but he took the time to completely build out several levels. He blocked them out and showed the Firaxis team what his ideas were and what he can do. And that's just one example right there of what he did. He kind of blocked out, entry points into buildings and how that worked. Well, this candidate got the job because he went above and beyond. He did more than the average candidate. He showed Firaxis, he showed me that he was very, very serious, and he went from going from a AAA studio or a AA studio to a AAA studio. So that's just one example of somebody going above and beyond. So I always say this: don't just meet expectations, but exceed them. Go above and beyond in a duelist world. I'd like to highlight the typical hiring process, and this is not 100% across all these studios, but it is really close. Like I said, I've probably worked with 20 or so studios, and this is what you typically will see in a hiring process whenever you apply for a job. Is step one, to get your information in front of a hiring authority, and it's your job to be proactive. It's your job to check in. I have no problem connecting with people on LinkedIn. If you've applied to a job at Funcom and you find me on LinkedIn and you connect with me and say hi, I will absolutely connect back with you. Just remember that. And I'm the general manager. If you do that with HR people, with recruiters, it's really important to connect with people. It kind of shows us that you're serious, that you stand out. There's a big difference between doing that and stalking us. If you constantly are messaging us nonstop, I've submitted my resume, get me an interview. I mean, that will be a big turnoff. But if you've connected with us and you say, I've applied for your job, please consider me, and let me know if you need anything else. If you're professional about it, it goes a really long way. The next step in the process would be a resume and portfolio review. This is typically done by an internal HR, HRBP, internal recruiter. This is somebody that's just giving your resume a glance and looking over your portfolio and making sure that you have the right background and experience that we're looking for that specific position. After a recruiter or HR person will move, they will move your profile from the applicant tracking system into the next stage, which would be an HR phone screen. This is typically like a 20 to 30-minute call with you to make sure that you're who you say you are, to verify contact information, to answer any questions that you have about the company, to um, just find out if you're the right fit. We kind of check, are you a cultural fit? Do you have the right personality? We typically don't ask very technical questions on these type of calls. It's very top level. Just kind of making sure that there's a good fit. After that, people will sometimes do an art test, a programming test, a design test. Most studios do this. A lot of people can be hesitant about taking tests. They say, "Well, I don't want you to use my art in the game. You're just going to steal it." Most of the time, for most studios, they give the same exact art test to every single candidate because they want to compare apples to apples and just make sure that what does one candidate do as opposed to another one. And that work is typically it's almost never used in an actual game, unless you're applying to some very small indie studio that isn't very ethical, I would say. But most studios, I mean, we have the same uniform test for our programmers at Funcom. We have something called a Boyd's test. It's a flocking simulation in C++ that we ask people to optimize some code and to just kind of clean it up. And it's the same exact test. We give it to our interns. We give it to our director level people. It's just to kind of verify that you can do what you say that you can do. So that's typically part of a hiring process. After that is a phone interview or lately, especially with COVID, it's been a Skype or Microsoft Teams or Zoom call. You'll typically meet with 2 to 3 people from the hiring team. A lot of times it's going to be a lead or a manager, maybe somebody from production. You'll get like a associate producer or producer on that call. This is where people are going to be diving into detail about your background, your experience. They're going to want to know the languages that the software the style that your way of thinking. This is typically an hour-long process, having this phone or video call. After that is a face-to-face interview or an on-site interview. Honestly, lately, due to COVID, we've been turning that into a 2 to 3 hour video call where you're meeting with several different types of people, people that would be on your team, people that would be in other departments. At Funcom, we like to have the interview process include people from different departments. I mean, it's important that if we're hiring a programmer, let's say, that they speak with somebody from design, they speak with somebody from art, because they're going to be working with them on a regular basis. So having somebody involved in those interviews is important. They want to get a say in who that they hire. After that, there's typically an offer negotiation. Most people that get their first job offer will jump at it and take it. That's understandable. If you've been in the industry a little bit, there's sometimes negotiation. I will say that I will typically allow for 1, maybe 2 negotiations. After that, if somebody's going back and forth and asking for things and then coming back and asking for more things, I will shut down the process. If it goes beyond like 2 or 3 negotiations, it gets everybody very mad. But if you're negotiating a little bit about salary or bonus or like a sign-on bonus or relocation, I mean, that's typical. And just understand that most people in human resources understand that there's going to be some kind of negotiation involved with an offer. After that, you start your new job. Um, right now, I will tell you at Funcom and most studios, we are all still 100% remote. I've hired a lot of people during COVID. I've got people on the West Coast. I have people in Alabama and Louisiana and Georgia and Maryland, and I mean they're all over the place. Everybody's working remotely. We are doing everything via Slack and Microsoft Teams. So You will probably start your job remotely until the studio opens back up. I am now working on our plan at Funcom to get everybody back into the office. Maybe the end of the summer is kind of our timeline, just so you're aware. I think a lot of other studios are starting to do that as well, because a lot of people in the US are starting to get vaccinated, so it's making it easier to bring people back in. But anyway, starting a new job would be after you accept the job offer. I want to talk about some changes in HR technology. I mentioned this a little bit, but using video chats for your first interview. Uh, Prior to this, people would just have a phone call. I would say 2 or 3 years ago, you just have a normal phone call using your cell phone. Lately, it's been video calls. And this is really important because when you're on a video call, people will see your background. They'll see the way that you dress, they'll see the way that you talk, your mannerisms. These are all important aspects to you getting hired. So just realize that when you jump on a Teams call or a Zoom call with somebody, that they're looking at your background. You know, we love cats. If you have a cat jump on your lap, that's okay. Some studios may not like that. Like we are super open about that stuff. But if you have piles of trash behind you, it kind of tells us something about you as a person. Are you going to be as organized as we need? Just realize that when going into video interviews, that backgrounds, appearance, your hair, the way that you dress, that's all part of who you are and your brand, and we take that into consideration. Sometimes people will do online testing. This is, a Google shared doc where you'll have to work on some code. You'll have uh, to to map something out. Sometimes we do a QA test where we ask people to kind of find the bugs in something. So a shared Google Doc is very common. This is also important. Behavioral-based questions. If you've been involved in any type of interviews, you've probably been asked the question, tell me a time when you did X, Y, and Z and how you responded to it. This is called a behavioral-based question. A behavioral-based question will allow us in human resources to gauge how you've responded to something in the past and then how you're going to then possibly respond to it in the future. You may be asked several behavioral-based questions during an interview. I would tell you to kind of come with some of these prepared. Know that somebody will probably ask you what's been the biggest struggle that you've had to overcome in your career and how you overcame it. That's probably a question most people will ask during an interview. You should have these type of examples
Gotcha. Yep.
in the back of your mind when you are going into an interview. So just do some research on behavioral based questions. Have those kind of as ammunition in your gun and ready to go, because people will ask them. I always ask behavioral based questions because I find it's important to kind of evaluate a candidate. You may be asked to do a skills assessment. This is sometimes for a cultural fit, like a Myers-Briggs test to figure out what kind of personality type you are. The Wonderlic test is kind of a general assessment. That's common with some studios. Okay, let's talk about getting your foot in the door. And I know I probably only have about 10 more minutes before I answer questions, so I'll kind of go fast. But getting your foot in the door, utilizing LinkedIn connections, connect with as many HR managers, recruiters, hiring authorities as you can. Most of us are very open to connecting with people. I like having a big um, pool of people that I know on LinkedIn. It allows me to distribute our job openings whenever we have them. We're currently hiring, I think, 75 people at Funcom, everywhere from designers to artists. And the more people that can see my jobs on LinkedIn, the more that it gets distributed. I am always open to connect it. If anybody on this call wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I will happily accept the connection. Getting an internship, I know that's easier said than done. Internships are hard to get. You have to fight for them. There are a lot out there. It's been a little bit harder with COVID. We had some internship positions at Funcom opened up in the beginning of 2020. We had to shut them down because for us, internships were hard to do in a remote environment. I know some studios have figured it out, but they'll be open. We'll be opening up more at Funcom, and I know some studios have been opening them up. Utilizing things like Gamasutra, game dev maps, is important to figure out who's hiring. going to gaming conventions or doing virtual conventions like this ECGC convention is important to meet people. I have had my calendar filled up with people, and I've been talking to people, and it's great. I am always open to talk to people. It's great to meet people. Once you have a conversation with somebody, they remember you. It sticks out in their mind that you're who you say you are. So utilizing external recruiters, there's a lot of different game development recruitment companies. You'll see companies like DAM, Digital Art Management, Game On. We use these recruiters at Funcom. I was part of a recruitment company for years. There's a lot of external recruiters out there that will help you get into different companies if you have the background that they're looking for. But connecting with these type of recruiters, especially in the game development industry, like I said, there's very specialized game development recruiters out there. Again, that's Game On and DAM are two of the bigger ones that I'm friends with and I know. So this is just pointing out kind of the obvious, or maybe not so obvious, but these are some of the harsh realities. And I like to be honest with people because harsh realities, it's good to just get it out there. Number one, it's extremely rare for any studio to relocate an entry-level candidate. I know that's hard to hear, but if you're in Maine or Vermont or someplace that does not have a lot of video game companies and you are applying for a junior 3D artist, it's extremely expensive to relocate somebody across the country, and it's very rare unless you've wowed somebody. But most studios won't do that for entry-level roles. We'll do it for intermediates. We'll definitely do it for seniors and leads and director level people. But for entry level, it is rare, and that's hard to hear. So I think most of the people that are in this talk, or at least that I've seen at ECGC, come from the North Carolina area. There are a lot of studios in North Carolina, so you are very lucky. I mean, off the top of my head, with Insomniac, Red Storm, Epic, Amanji, Squanch, I mean, Grover. I mean, there are so many game development studios here in this area. Funcom. I mean, we have a nice hub of game studios. So try to find something close to you, because I personally would not relocate an entry level candidate, because I know that I'd be able to find an entry level candidate in the city that I'm in. That's the reality of it. Your school projects and project experience do not count as industry experience. It absolutely is applicable to you getting a job. It's your experience, but it is not considered industry on-site, development experience. Like it's not considered like you've been at a company working. People have fought me on this and fought many other HR people, but I am not downplaying school projects and project experience, because it is 100% valid. But don't try to push that off on a recruiter and HR person as having industry experience. Or what I've seen a lot of people do is they've created separate companies while they're in school, or they've called their project teams companies. We catch on to that stuff pretty quickly. We know that they're not real companies. If you've created a company after you've graduated and you've shipped a game, that's different. That's an indie company. You have a ship title. You've created a legit team. That is different. But while you're at school, we consider that your schoolwork, and it's 100% relevant and valid. But it's not industry specific experience. A mediocre artist, designer, or programmer will never get a job in the industry. I know that is harsh to hear, but you have to be the best. This is a super, super competitive industry. You have to shine. You have to, be great and show that you're great and be hardworking. If you're not fully in this and fully invested, you will never get a job, because somebody else out there will be just a little bit better, or will be just work a little bit harder at it, and they're the ones that are going to get the job. No one is going to fight for you. You need to fight for yourself. Super important. You have to be your own advocate. Fight for yourself. Make those connections. Get out there. Apply wherever you can. Keep fighting for yourself. You'll ultimately get a job. Just some game industry numbers, which I found very interesting, and it's pretty amazing that this is a 150 plus $1 billion industry. 45% of that comes from mobile. Right now at Funcom, we're not doing much with mobile. We do a lot with console and PC. I used to work with a lot of mobile development companies. I worked with Kabam and Kixeye and Gameloft. It's a huge, huge industry. A lot of people are hiring in mobile right now. The U.S. is the number one with 36.9 billion. What else do we have here? You can read these stats. I just found it interesting. I don't want to waste time with the stats when I only have a couple minutes left. All right, here's some resources. First resource, this is really cool and interesting. If you don't know it already, please go to these two websites. So gamedevmap.com or gamesmith.com, and they have a dev map on their website. These are maps with very specific cities that show you the studios within each city. So you can click on a red location, you can click on the company, and then you can go to the careers page or the hiring page and see who's hiring. This gives you a good overview of which cities have a larger, I guess, community of game development studios. As a game developer, if you go to a city that only has one or two game development studios, if something happens with that studio, and I've been part of studios that are no longer here, like I used to work with Vicious Cycle, I used to work with Cliff Blazinski and Boss Key, like I helped build that Lawbreakers team, with Cliff and Boss Key. They're no longer here. They were in the Raleigh area. They're not here anymore. A lot of studios go under. A lot of studios, will put all their eggs in one basket with one game. They're no longer here. So when you're looking for jobs, if you're looking for a city to live in and be part of, make sure that city has multiple opportunities because it may be great being part of a startup. Like it's exciting. There's higher salaries normally with startups, but typically there's only one game or one project that they're working on, and if that doesn't do well, the studio may no longer be here. So. The next is being involved in game dev drink ups. I've been involved in the ones here in the Raleigh area. You'll see me at the bar sometimes. I've brought material. I brought Funcom stuff and given it away. But look at gamedevdrinkup.com. Find the meetups. Talk to people. I know it's hard for some people to be extroverted. Try to do it. It's making connections is really important. It's a very, very, very small industry. People know everybody. Everybody connects with everybody because people move around from studio to studio. Like if you said to me, "Hey Paxton, do you know anybody over at this studio?" I mean, my brother works at Red Storm. Like, I mean, it is such a small industry. I have friends over at Epic. I have friends over at all these studios. So, connecting with one or two key people will give you a good outreach into the industry. So, okay. So I'll leave my contact information up here. I know I probably have about 6 or 7 minutes left. I think I need to minimize this, and I could try to answer any questions that anybody has. Let me see. Unless they wanted my contact, yeah. Okay. So if you want to pick them and just give them to me, I'll answer them as fast as I can. I would say yes, even if it's one or two sentences. The objective tells me very top level who you are, what you do, and what your passion is. I look for very specific people. Like I'm just going to give one example. We hire hard surface artists. If you're a hard surface artist, that tells me that you're a 3D artist that focuses on weapons or hard surface assets or material. I want to know that you're not just a generalist 3D artist, that you have specialized. So in your objective, if you put, I am looking for a hard surface position, or if as a programmer, you're like, I have been a C++ Unreal Engine gameplay programmer, I am looking to continue this, something along those lines. It tells me at a very top level what you're looking to do. I think objectives are very important. So yes. Yes, it would. You're within a production environment. You are developing a game. Honestly, most internships, if you do it well, you will probably get a job. I have transferred most of my interns at Funcom into full-time employees, as long as they've performed properly. So Absolutely. Yeah, that is industry experience. You have been making a game, you are in that environment, you understand what it's like. Like we use Scrum in our office, so we do Scrum production. So you've been in that production environment, you know what it's like to do sprints and stand-ups, stuff like that. I mean, that's all part of you being part of a game development studio. No, it's not. ATS, applicant tracking system. That is the software that you've put your resume into for, let's say, Epic. I mean, Bullhorn's one of them. Taleo, Greenhouse. Like these are software platforms that you don't necessarily know that you're even doing it with, like that you're putting your resume in. But when you apply for a job, it'll go and put you in that database and into that applicant tracking system. At Funcom, we use Team Taylor. But that's what will store your resume. We keep that, and you will have a profile on our applicant tracking system. We move you from job to job. We will put notes on you. We will take you from, we will schedule interviews with you within our applicant tracking system. So that's all that stands for, applicant tracking system. And LinkedIn's different. LinkedIn is a social media platform. Indeed is an aggregator for jobs that will pull jobs from other companies and post them, but those aren't necessarily an applicant tracking system. I do think LinkedIn has a recruiter version of it where it can act as an applicant tracking system, but for the most part, most studios have their own applicant tracking system. Okay, art tests. I'll talk about that first. In art test, we will show you specific concept arts or concept art examples or 3D art examples and ask you to make a third character or make a fourth character that is along these lines and will fit with this lineup of characters. Or yeah, we give a very specific example and we ask you to match it to see how you do, the way that you think. And then with design, we we will ask you to kind of map out a scenario or how you would design the gameplay for a boss encounter. It depends on the project. So we're hiring right now at Funcom for, let's say, Conan Exiles, or we're hiring for our new Dune project. So we will ask, in North Carolina, we're hiring for the combat team. That we're making all the combat for the new Dune game. So that's weapons and vehicles and range combat and melee, and we want to know, if you're joining that combat team, what type of gameplay design ideas you would put into the game. So we would ask you, okay, given this scenario, tell us what this weapon would do, and give us the perks and what it would do if this weapon had poison to it, what it would do to the enemy, and we ask somebody to kind of map out that kind of stuff for game design. Um, and then for programming, it's easy. That's the Boyd's test. We give a QA test. I mean, they're simple tests. We typically give people a week to complete them. Some people can complete it in a day or two, most of our tests. So, yeah. Most people that are trying, yeah, most people that are, what was that? No, it's okay. Most people that are getting a job in the video game industry have worked on some kind of a project, have worked on, done some game testing, have done something other than, you know, being a barista at Starbucks. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Um, it's just not applicable to what you're applying for. I would rather see a resume that shows me the projects that you've worked on, your portfolio, and some indie project that you and your friends have been working on, as opposed to seeing that were a night shift stalker at Walmart or whatever, just to make money. So I would say it's not important to put that on a resume. We know that you were probably gainfully employed somewhere, or that you were employed to get through college, or but it's not applicable to your career if you're trying to be a 3D artist or a game designer. So I would say it's not needed. I'm not even going to look at it. So yeah. That so again, like I said, we're not going to relocate people if you're entry level, or we're definitely not going to relocate interns, especially at Funcom. Most mid-sized studios probably will not relocate for internships. So you need to go to that game dev map and look up the location that you're at, and then go through each studio at that location on their hiring page, and they will typically say if they're looking for interns. Um, I know a lot of people that have moved out to California that have stayed with friends and looked for internships just to prove that they're in those locations. Some people may not have friends in those areas, but there have been people that have done that because they know that with internships, you're not going to get relocated. So look at the game dev map, click on the companies, and then go to their careers pages, and there'll be an internship link there. Sure, absolutely. Don't know how to, but yeah, sure. Yeah, I could, I could save it as like a PDF and send it off. So whoever wants, my email's on the bottom there. Just email me, say I'd love to have your presentation, or uh, or you can link in with me, whatever you want. I'll share it with you. I have considered it before because I've hired people not in video game development for our software engineer positions. I'll take an example. If you're a software engineer that has done Python or C# or something, that's directly applicable to our tools programmer role, something like that. So your programming experience in other languages and in other companies can be useful within video game development. So 100% that does count. Okay. That depends on what you're applying for. I love different colleges. Like I do like Full Sail. I like Wake Tech. I mean, there's been some awesome candidates that I've seen come out of Wake Tech and some of these other schools. So it depends on what you want to do. That's the biggest thing I will tell everybody is try to find what you want to do, hone in on that, specialize in that, and then look for a job. Being specialized is way more valuable than being a generalist. Generalists are great for like indie studios or smaller studios, but if you want to get into a big studio like Epic or Ubisoft or EA, they look for very specialized people that know specific languages or that have a certain style or that have done certain things. So specialize yourself. Your schools will help you specialize yourself. What they typically will do is give you a type, broad different types of classes and let you try different things to see what you like and what you don't like, but hone in on what you find that you like. If you want to be an animator, own it. If you want to be a character animator, own it. Learn everything about character animations, do character animation loops, um, learn learn Max. I mean, learn UE4, whatever will help you get those jobs. So specialize, but get what you need from universities. Yeah. So you have to understand the company that you're going in for. And typically, I like to tell people how to dress, but do not dress in a suit. We're a video game development company. That's like a huge turnoff. If you come in with a full suit and tie, like overdressing is horrible and underdressing is horrible. Like if you come in with flip-flops and sandals and a tank top or something, it is perceived as very, very poor. Or if you come in with a full suit on with a tie, that's poor. So somewhere in the middle, like a casual, like if you come in with like a polo or a nice shirt and and jeans on or something, that's fine. I mean, I will typically try to preface our interviews with, hey, you're coming in for an on-site. We do not dress, formal here. Most of the people in my office wear t-shirts and shorts. That's the reality of it. I mean, I wear t-shirts all day. I think fun t-shirts are cool. Like I have gaming t-shirts and that's all I wear when I go into the office. And most people at our studio do that as well. But as long as you don't look trashy and as long as you don't look overdressed, somewhere in the middle is fine. Cool. All right. Yep. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.